Hello and welcome to Film Fridays here on Fiction
everybody.
Revolution. Hello, my wife, partner, amazing person Eve is here with us today, as well as our cat, Pretty Princess. She decided she wanted to be part of the video. Yeah. So here on Film Fridays today, we're going to show an artwork and film that we made back in 2019 called Frost. And it's on Robert Frost, who spent an awful lot of time here in Vermont. And this is looking at two different places that he lived in Vermont, down in Shaftesbury and up in Ripton.
Both of which are still maintained as historic sites today. And
absolutely amazing to go visit. So if you're in Vermont, you're into Robert Frost, check out the sites. They're really awesome. The camera that I used was a Linhof 617S. I no longer own that camera. I own a newer version of it. This is the 617S3. The differences between the two cameras is the 617S had a 90mm lens that did not come off the camera. It was a 90mm super angulon SA, f5.6. It was permanently mounted to the camera and really just a great lens. I mean, that is such a sharp three-dimensional lens, which you'll see in the imagery. But I decided I wanted to have the ability of interchangeable lenses. So I sold that camera and bought this one, of which, as I mentioned in our previous Film Fridays, I own a 72, a 90, and a 180. It's just a really versatile camera. One interesting note is that the day that I was photographing the Frost, I did it all in one day. So I drove 45 minutes south, photographed for a few hours, drove an hour and a half to an hour and 45 north, did some filming. It was snowing, and I mean snowing like a lot. And it actually caused a problem on my older 617S. Moisture got into the camera, and because these cameras are traditionally lubricated with an oil-based lubricant, it caused the gears to slip. And I went through like 10 rolls of film up in Ripton just to get a handful of shots. It was so maddening.
So you were freaking out.
Yeah, it would load, and I'm just getting soaked. It's really wet, huge snowflakes, absolutely annoying. So when I sent that camera in to be serviced to Bob Watkins at Precision Camera, hey Bob.
Hey Bob.
I had him use a dry rub lubricant instead of the oil base, and that would prevent that problem again. But then I sold the camera anyways and bought this current incarnation. At that time, I was shooting almost exclusively with Kodak 400TX and would have been processed in D76. Do you want to talk a little bit about the film?
Yes, so Steve comes to me. I did not go along on those photo shoots, but I had been to these two different sites previously. So I had an idea of what it was like, but at the same time I did a bunch of research about Robert Frost, and I came up with a hybrid story that sort of, it takes off from the facts of Robert Frost's life and creates a fictional character who is visiting the homestead present day. So I created a character who is fictional, but is a big fan of Robert Frost and is going to visit, an aspiring poet who is going to visit these sites.
And it's a short film, so enjoy it. It's any questions you have about the 617, 617S, photographing with Tri-X, Robert Frost, put it in the comment. If you have not subscribed, yes, I see you out there watching this film. Subscribe today, and happy shooting.
The sign says, if the custodians are not present. But I am a custodian, I think. Of a sort. I start again. If the custodians are not present, visitors may view the cabin where Frost lived and worked by walking straight up the lane and looking to the left as they approach the top. The top? The top of what? Does a lane have a top? Top of the lane. Is that an actual thing? Top of the morning, top of the world. None of these things have actual tops. But I digress. I start again. If the custodians are not present, visitors may view the cabin where Frost lived and worked by walking straight up the lane and looking to the left as they approach the top, but are asked to remain on the path and to disturb no property. I hop over a small boulder that is intended to guide guests towards the path and run at a sprint up the meadow, my boots crunching the snow like cornflakes. An icebox chill is in the air. I run up to the cabin, but get a pain in my side and have to stop. I place my hands on my knees and breathe. frosty air feels painful. I think, frost's air feels painful. Thin as a string bean, but I'm in terrible shape. Walking up to the cabin, I pace back and forth and my breathing calms. I walk right up to the windows and peer in. Frost was 40 when his first collection of poetry was published. 40. When I learned that my manuscript had been denied, again, I had gotten in my car and driven here. Actually, that's a lie. First, I sat in my car and cried. I cried like a 10-year-old kid with racking sobs. I haven't cried in years. What if I was truly a terrible poet? Or worse, what if it didn't actually matter whether I was any good or not? Frost cried too, stopping by the woods on a snowy evening. He hadn't made enough money farming to provide his family a nice Christmas, and he was ashamed. Think of that. He suffered from depression, anxiety, jealousy, fiery temper, and astonishing ambition. It has been suggested that Frost could be, at times, a bit of a jerk. Once, when a fellow poet was doing a reading, he accidentally set a small fire in the back of the room. On another occasion, a fellow poet was so provoked as to pour a mug of beer over Frost's head. I have never provoked anyone enough to make them pour beer over my head. Peering through the glass, I can't see much inside the cabin, which is shadowy. It's dark, a mausoleum to brilliance. Or just another wooden box that hasn't fallen down yet, in between the woods and a meadow. I stand there and wait to understand. I have stood here so long that any footprints I had made are now gone. People kept leaving him. His father died of tuberculosis. His first child died of cholera. His mother died of cancer. His sixth child died soon after birth. His sister died in a mental hospital. His fifth child died of puerperal fever. His wife died of a heart attack. As an adult, his third child committed suicide in the stone house, the same house Frost was living in 16 years before when he received his first Pulitzer Prize. Frost moved to Vermont for the apple trees. The man was obsessed with trees. He once wrote a poem about how a young boy had cut down one of his pine trees as a Christmas tree for his family. It reads like a therapy session. Other lesser-known facts. He was a failed poultry farmer. He was known to heckle fellow poets. He was terrified of public speaking. He never graduated from college, but received enough honorary doctorates to have a patchwork quilt made of all the hoods. Scratch that. It was actually 2 quilts and a throw. I have stood here so long that my feet become roots. I have stood here so long my hair has grown leaves. My arms are bare from the absence of fruits that spring's blushing folly conceives. My legs they are bark, and from shading unlawful look, my hands are twigs that scratch at the window hook. A bird alights on the window frame and looks to me as if he knows. Fear not, my friend, he seems to say. I know just how it feels to think of the right thing to say, too late.